Hello friends, my name is Ryan, and today I'm going to tell you a story named The BTK Strangler, a serial killer's letters to the police, which is an amazing story full of twists. So let's start. It was a quiet evening in Wichita, Kansas, and the sun had just begun to set, casting an orange glow over the streets. People were finishing their daily routines, unaware of the terror that had been brewing for years. A monster was hiding in plain sight, one who would come to be known as the BTK Strangler, a name that would haunt the city for decades. This story is not for the faint-hearted, and as I tell it, I want you to imagine every chilling detail as if you were right there, feeling the unease creeping into your bones. The year was 1974, and the first of many murders had already taken place. A young woman, Catherine Bright, was found brutally strangled in her home, her body left in a shocking display of violence. But what made this crime different from others was the strange message that was left behind, a cryptic letter, written in chilling detail, that would be sent to the local news. It wasn't the first letter, nor would it be the last, but it was the start of something that would terrify the city for years to come. The killer, who would later be known as BTK, signed his letters with the ominous initials that stood for bind, torture, kill. Each letter that followed was filled with horrifying details, almost as if the killer was relishing the terror he was causing. He described in graphic detail how he carried out his crimes, as though he was daring the police to catch him. He taunted law enforcement, playing a twisted game with them, all while remaining just out of reach. As the years went by, more bodies were discovered, each murder more brutal than the last. The city lived in fear, knowing that the BTK Strangler was still out there, watching, waiting, and planning his next move. The police were desperate to catch him, but every lead seemed to go cold. The killer was meticulous, leaving no clues behind, and it seemed as though he was untouchable. But then, something strange happened. After a long silence, the BTK Strangler sent another letter, this one more bizarre than the rest. In it, he demanded that the police print his letters in the newspaper, or he would stop killing. This demand seemed to give him even more power, as though he was controlling the narrative of his own crimes. He wanted the attention, the fear, the recognition. And with each letter, the grip of terror on the city grew tighter. People began to suspect their neighbors, their friends, even their family members. But the killer was cunning. He blended in with society, living a seemingly normal life while hiding his dark secret. No one knew who he was, not even the police. He could be anyone, the man sitting next to you on the bus, the neighbor you waved to every morning, or the friendly face you passed in the grocery store. And that uncertainty, that fear of the unknown, was what made his reign of terror so powerful. Years passed, and the murders stopped. The police had no leads, no suspects, and the letters from the BTK Strangler ceased. The city began to breathe a little easier, but the fear remained, lingering in the shadows. Had the killer moved on? Had he been caught? Or had he simply disappeared, blending back into the anonymity of the world? But then, in 2004, after nearly 2 decades of silence, the BTK Strangler resurfaced. He sent another letter, this time to the local newspaper, confirming that he had never stopped. The killer was still alive, still active, and still willing to taunt the police with his twisted games. And this time, he made a grave mistake. In his letter, the BTK Strangler made a fatal error. He included a clue that would eventually lead to his downfall. The police, now armed with new technology, were able to trace the letter back to him. After years of searching, they finally had a lead. The investigation that had once seemed hopeless was now filled with new hope. In February of 2005, after an exhaustive investigation, the police arrested Dennis Rader, a former compliance officer, and father of 2, who had lived in the same city for years. The man who had terrorized Wichita for so long had been living right under their noses. He had been hiding in plain sight, playing the perfect game of deception. But the truth had finally come to light. Dennis Rader's capture was a shocking revelation to the city and to the world. The man who had taunted the police, who had sent his letters and lived for years in the shadows, was now exposed. But the story didn't end there. Rader was sentenced to life in prison for the murders of 10 innocent people. But even in prison, his mind remained twisted, and he continued to send letters, reliving his crimes and seeking attention. He could never escape the darkness he had created. And so, my friends, the story of the BTK Strangler is a chilling reminder of the evil that can lurk in the most unsuspecting places. The terror he caused still echoes through the city of Wichita, and the memory of his twisted reign will never be forgotten. I hope this story left you with a sense of unease, a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying things aren't the ones we can see, but the ones we can't. If you enjoyed this story, and if you want to hear more spine-tingling tales that will keep you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We're just getting started, and there's so much more to come. Stay safe, my friends, and remember, the shadows are always watching.